On the fringe of a Munich airport lies the wreckage of an airliner, still smouldering from a crash in which 21 people were killed. Tragedy enough at any time. But in that plane were a group of young men who were almost the personal friends of millions. Manchester United, the finest soccer team Britain has produced since the war. And 7 of them died in the crash.
I was sitting in a chair like this, sitting there. We had the fire at the time. It was before we had the central heating here. We were sitting there, and I had moved over here for some reason. The next thing I heard the gate, and Alice and my mother were out the back, earning. And I looked and I saw it was Charlie Jackson, who had been the lad who used to look after his team in Home Farm. He was a good friend of the family's, and he worked in Guinness's. And I looked and I showed her, so here's Cha. And my mother said, who? I said, it's Charlie Jackson. She looked at it, she pointed at the clock. This is to Alice. She pointed at the clock, she said, they're home, Charlie. Yeah. She said, I'm afraid not, Mrs. Whelan, he says. Exactly what she said. Charlie, they're home. I said, what's wrong, Charlie? She said, did you not hear that? And he said, I came up, she says, to offer my condolences, he says. Or to be with you, he says, when we're waiting for... I said, what's wrong, Charlie? See, the plane has crashed. And that was, we heard it. And it was all around Dublin. We hadn't heard it. We were in here. And every now and again, a bulletin would come that they discovered Eddie Coleman and he's dead. Or Bobby Charlton has been found and he survived it. And Harry Gregg is there, Bill Foulkes, but no mention of Liam. And went to the end, and got a phone call, and I went in, and it was Jimmy Murphy. And he says, Christy, I said, yes. He said, we've bad news, he says. You heard, you know what? I said, yes. He said, we've bad news. He said, Liam didn't survive it. He says, from what's left here in Old Trafford, he says, we send our sympathies. That's the words he said, what's left here. He says, we send our sympathies to you. And he says, well, you could give your condolences to your mother and all, he says, and we will be in touch with you and we will be looking after you over all this trouble and that. So we can back you. My mother still wouldn't let us switch off the radio in case it would come on that he was dead. So the house was packed. Yeah. People coming from far and near, lads from the football world and all. And Tommy Hamilton, Jerry Mackey, Con Martin, they were all, and we had the extension, Reese's extension out the back, and they were out, most of the men were out there. That late that night, we were made go to bed to lie down. So we lay down, and my mother said, when she had gone up, the police had come to give us official notice that he was dead. So I was up and I was lying on the bed, and she said, Christy, I said, yes. She said, if he was dead, she said, shouldn't the police come to notify us? And I said, they were here, ma'am.
We don't talk that much about it, really. But that was my mother's way of dealing with it. Was that Liam was gone straight to heaven.
But we still could not believe it. From up to that night now, like people were coming in sympathising with us, and in our own way we were saying, how did they know that we hadn't had the official notice? But then, as Christy said, the police had come, and then she was so upset, and she was so upset with everything, like, you know. But she could not believe it that
she was in shock though.
He was after being taken from us, you know. But she got through it, and as I say, her faith had us, and we all prayed hard, and our faith brought us all through it, you know.
Christy pulled us through the tragedy as well. He was wonderful to us all, you know. He had to take on the mantle, and he wasn't much older than us, you know, but he was wonderful to us through the whole tragedy.
If you see the photographs of the funeral there, like from the airport down, there was people on the sides of the road. Then when we got to Home Farm, you think it was a football match was on. with the crowd that was there.
And the young boys lined the street.
They stopped and to put a wreath from Home Farm on it there at that time, and we continued on from there to here, and we came to Cabra, and you could hardly see the church.
And St. Peter's.
We could get.
No,
the saddest part of all was when the funeral was passing by the church and the school, where he went to school, and to see
the school boys, were lined up.
You
have to deal with accounts, as it was, with 3 books of what went on. I mean, one of the things that comes out, Christy, is what Liam apparently said on the plane at the time, which was there's a lot of anxiety and fear at the time when something was going wrong, and he said, if it's my time, then I'm ready for it. Is that something that you would see as very typical?
That's a very important thing. Yeah, that means a lot. It meant a lot too.
That helped my mother an awful lot.
Yeah, it did. Harry Gregg did come over to my mother and myself, and he said, Mrs. Whelan, for all it's worth, he says, I heard Liam saying that if this is it, he says, I'm ready for it.
I just remember him as a loving brother and a son to my mother. We've such proud memories of him. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I just remember him, and I just remember him playing on the pitch, and just his skill. Yeah, I loved him.
Well, my memories probably was any time he came home, especially playing for the Irish team, or he was training anywhere, he always brought me with him. And I can remember him bringing me one time to a place called Milltown, and he had scored the previous Saturday against Arsenal, and he showed me exactly how he scored the goal.
Well, I just remember Liam as being my big brother, and when he'd come home from England, we used to have great fun together, and we miss him terribly, and I still love him, very much so.
One of the best memories that I have was when I used to go over to him, and he'd be waiting at the railway station for me, and he was always delighted to see me, because, as I say, he was that bit homesick, and he was always thrilled then that I was to see me there, and because I knew then, he was a great brother, but I was thrilled with his skill. I must have known it before an awful lot of people, and I was delighted when he eventually proved what I was saying, that he was going to be one of the best players we ever saw, which he was.